I'm a film and video editor, and I want to tell you as a shooter, what do I need from you to make my editing better? Number one is shooting in the proper format. If you're working with a producer or anybody who is telling you what they want, we're talking frame rate, time code, color space, bit depth, file type, MP4, MOV, RAW, log, whatever. If that's being requested of you, then do it. There's a reason why they want it. Do not decide that you know better, okay? If the editor and the producer want it a certain way, do it. We're going to start with the basics. And I know these things might sound extremely obvious, but you would be shocked at how many people don't do this, okay? Set the date and time of your camera or cameras. If you have multiple cameras, make sure they are set to the same date and time. Okay, this is extremely helpful when we get a bunch of footage in and we need to know what the heck happened and when it happened. Okay? Format the cards before you shoot. Because when you upload that media for the producer and the editor to log and edit, you don't want other things on it. You want just the stuff that pertains to the shoot that you're on. You don't need other stuff on it, okay? So format those cards. You need to have the proper white balance. You need to have good exposure and protected highlights. You need to have no dead clips. This is a harder one to do, but if you're shooting and you realize that there's a bunch of dead clips, meaning you were doing something and there's a bunch of short little hits, or maybe you were testing something, or maybe you were, whatever. If you've got clips that are dead that are not needed, take a minute while you're shooting and clear them, okay? Another important thing is to make sure that you are doing your focus and exposure before you hit record, okay? So when you're on set and you're shooting B-roll, make sure that as you're shooting, you're focusing the camera and getting that exposure right before you hit the record button, okay? So that your record button is clean and the clip is as you intended as soon as you hit record, okay? Use a tripod when necessary. Don't just assume that in post they can stabilize it, okay? Take the time to use a tripod if you need a tripod, okay? Same thing with gimbals. Take the time to use the stabilizing on set before you just say, they can stabilize it in post, okay? Audio is a big one, okay? Make sure you have audio. This is not just because an editor wants audio in the final edit, although they might want audio in the final edit. As editors, we look at audio while we're editing as a reference. So it speeds us up if you have natural sound, because we can see the waveforms and we can understand exactly what is happening in the footage. We can reference the waveform. We can go ahead, we can go behind, it helps, okay? Even if we're not going to use the audio in the edit, okay? On that note, keep in mind that the audio is recording. So if you're on set and you're shooting footage and you're smack talking somebody, your microphone's picking it up, okay? If you're running your mouth off, or you're talking about personal stuff, or you're maybe on a phone call and you're near the camera, the audio is picking that up. So just be aware. Be aware, okay? Just letting you know, okay? And then when you're uploading the footage and you're giving it off to somebody, make sure that you are specifying what's on those audio channels. So if your camera records 4 channels of audio, just take the extra 30 seconds it takes when you send over the footage to notate what's on the channels, okay? This can be very helpful, And editors really appreciate that. Here's some nice to haves. So I just went over a lot of the definite things you need to do. Well, here's some nice to haves. Nice to haves would be buffer on each side of the clip. So we want some time on the front and the back. We want 2 to 3 seconds, 2 to 3 seconds, right? Front and back, right? Because we don't want the clip to just be so cut so tight that we don't have any handle there, you know, to apply an effect or, you know, do something with it, right? Audible notations are appreciated if they're needed. Over the years, I have appreciated shooters that will maybe give me an audible notation when I'm editing. If they'll say, "Hey Brian," or "Hey editor," whatever, an editor's note. "Hey editor, you don't want to use this clip because the client said that that's the wrong person to be in the frame. Hey editor, I'm going to try a rack focus. So I'm going to give you several options here of different focus points." Okay. Editor's notes. There's nothing wrong with an editor's note. In fact, an editor will really appreciate it. Okay. Slates for audio sync. So it really helps when you're on set to do some sort of slate or clap, especially when you're using multiple cameras, you know, slating or clapping at the very basic to give me a consistent point for which to sync. Okay. And then options, right? I want options from your shots. I want different angles. I don't just want one piece of coverage. I want lots of pieces of coverage. Okay? I want you to get dangerously close to overshooting. I want you to be on the edge of overshooting, not on the edge of undershooting. I want you to think, oh, gee whiz, the editor is going to think there's too many clips here. That's a good place to be. All right. You don't want to be like, oh, I knocked off 3 shots and I'm done. You know, knock off more than you think. The editor will thank you. Shooting in scenes is appreciated. So you're shooting action and reaction. Shoot in scenes. Think about wide, medium, tight, action, reaction sort of thing. So it's not just a clip, it's a group of clips that can be cut together into a scene. Okay? In focus and out of focus, right? In focus, out of focus. Options, right? Silhouette. Consider shooting a shot silhouette and non-silhouette, right? So silhouette just means that the figures that are in the shot are in shadow and the background is exposed, okay? POV. So why not give me some shots where we can see like a fake, like, not a fake, but maybe it's fake, but you know, a POV of what someone's seeing, right? Not just them, but maybe a shot that gives me the idea that we're on POV, okay? A moving shot, you know, dolly, truck, you know, a moving shot, either done with a gimbal or without a gimbal, done with a slider or not a slider, but just moving, right? Or static. Static is another shot, you know. Time lapse. Why don't you maybe just knock off a time lapse, right? This is especially true in documentaries where you're shooting something and you don't have a chance to go shoot it again. There is no reshoot, okay? The editor is never going to complain about having a lot of different types of coverage, okay? So whatever you can do on set to provide that 360-degree look at the subject, right? Wide, medium, tight. High, medium, low, right? Scenes, actions, reactions, faces, hands, feet, environment, texture, you know, all these things, right? Variety. Editors want variety. They want proper specs. If the producer gives you specs, then use them. If they want you to shoot in 24, do not shoot in 30. If they want you to shoot the slow-mo in 60, shoot the slow-mo in 60. Okay? So specs, good notes, possible audible editor notes, tight clips, no dead clips, and you're going to make the editor happier, okay? Now I know that editors can sometimes be a little grumpy. I've been guilty of being grumpy as an editor, but you know, coffee helps, and also following some rules and being organized in your shooting also helps, okay? I hope this helps you understand a little bit better of how to shoot to editing. My last tip will be, if you're a shooter and you're not an editor, maybe you should try to do some editing for practice so that maybe you'll understand exactly what it's like as an editor to get footage in. It'll make you a better shooter if you do some editing. I'm not asking for everybody to become editors, but I'm saying you would become a better shooter if you did a little bit of editing. So, but get out there, shoot some awesome stuff, and make those editors' lives easier. All right, we'll see you in the next one.